In 2001, the quaint town of Florence in the Bitterroot Valley witnessed a triple homicide that shook the community to its core. Join us as we piece together the puzzle, attempting to shed light on the darkness that still haunts the memories of this once serene town. This is the story of Cindy Paulus, Brenda Patch, and Dorothy Harris. Known for its stunning landscapes, including Glacier and Yellowstone National Parks, in 2001, Montana's economy was influenced by agriculture, tourism, and natural resource extraction. Cattle ranchers and wheat farmers faced fluctuating commodity prices and weather-related challenges. Judy Martz was governor, the first and only woman to hold that position. On a national scale, the September 11th terrorist attacks in New York City dominated the news and the consciousness of the American people. It was against this backdrop that on November 6, 2001, 3 women would be found brutally murdered in the Hair Gallery and All About Nails Salon at 5355 U.S. Highway 93. Dorothy Harris, age 62, had operated several salons before purchasing the old Florence post office and remodeling it into the Hair Gallery and All About Nails Salon just the year before the murders. By all accounts, a loving mother, wife, and grandmother, Dorothy was well known for her sense of humor, positive attitude, and love for life. Cynthia, Cindy Paulus, age 71, was a devoted grandmother, avid horseback rider, and Lady Grizz basketball fan. She loved to fish and play golf and enjoyed the holiday season when her large family would gather together. Although she usually got her nails done on Fridays, by a twist of fate she had changed her appointment and was at the salon that Tuesday morning. Brenda Patch, age 44, loved dogs and had an interest in ceramics, plants, and aquatic gardens. She was a perfectionist and had become a nail technician 7 years earlier after leaving her job in education. She was a proud grandmother and gave her time to local Little League teams. It is unclear how long she had been employed at the salon prior to the murders. On that Tuesday morning, a customer arriving for her hair appointment at 11 a.m. discovered Dorothy laying in a fetal position just inside the salon entrance in a pool of blood. Obviously shaken, she stepped over Dorothy to use the salon phone to call authorities before stepping back outside. She was unaware there were 2 other victims in a back utility room. The salon, which was closed on Sundays and Mondays, was open the other 5 days of the week. As was her regular Tuesday morning routine, Dorothy had driven to her bank in the town of Stevensville, about 10 miles away, to make her deposit of the prior week's receipts. Dorothy was seen at the bank at about 10:30 a.m., and police theorized she arrived back at the salon between 10:45 and 10:50 a.m. Police believe Cindy arrived on time for her 10 a.m. nail appointment with Brenda. The murders were shockingly brazen. The salon building is lined with windows and easily viewable by passers-by. Its location, on a busy through street, was unobstructed to cars driving by. And yet, an unknown killer murdered 3 women in a very short span of time in the middle of a busy working day. Police and firefighters arrived on scene shortly after 11 a.m., finding Dorothy dead just inside the back door, which customers used to enter the salon. It appeared Dorothy was killed just as she stepped inside the salon after returning from her morning banking trip. There was no sign of a struggle. Cindy and Brenda were dead in a back utility room. There were signs of a struggle in that room. It is unclear whether the women were forced into the back or were already back there when the assailant struck. All 3 had their throats cut with an edged weapon that was not recovered. Authorities are unsure what the weapon was, but speculate it was a knife. None of the victims were bound, and there was no indication of sexual assault. Robbery was quickly ruled out as no money was missing and the women's purses were undisturbed, although 2 beautician capes, one black and one gold, were missing from the scene. A pair of wraparound sunglasses were found in the middle of the crime scene and did not belong to any of the victims. Police are unsure if they belonged to the killer or were left by someone visiting the salon earlier. The sunglasses, fingerprints, DNA, and hair fibers collected at the scene were sent for testing. The brazen nature of the murders in broad daylight during business hours puzzled investigators, but also provided their most solid lead. The customer who found Dorothy told police there was an oddly dressed man outside the salon when she arrived, and she described him as wearing a dark business suit with a tall top hat. Other witnesses also saw the same man nearby. Dan Halley, a Next-Perce tribal police officer from Lewiston, Idaho, created a composite sketch from a compilation of eyewitness accounts from the 5 witnesses who got a good look at the man. Described as wearing an odd hat, stated as both a tall stovepipe and a fedora, and either a dark suit or duster-type coat, the man was thought to be in his 20s, around 6 feet tall, weighing about 180 to 200 pounds with no facial hair. He was wearing a white shirt with no tie and may have been carrying something. This oddly dressed man would later be seen by a witness walking into a wooded area behind the old Six-Pack Supper Club just south of Florence. What stood out most to the witnesses was the hat. It wasn't a cowboy hat that is so common in the area. The Ravalli County Sheriff Perry Johnson assigned 8 of the department's 26 officers to work the case full-time during the first months of the investigation, and stationed 1 officer at the salon 24/7. All surveillance tapes were collected from stores between Stevensville to Lolo. Johnson also asked for assistance from the FBI and neighboring agencies. It was clear from interviews with family members that the victims were unrelated and had no connection other than the salon. Police interviews did not turn up any domestic or financial issues for any of the women. Sheriff Johnson initially believed the murders were committed by someone unknown to the women, but by the 3rd day of the investigation, he came to believe the murders were not a random act of violence. Some of his officers disagreed. While interviews with the families turned up nothing to suggest that anyone known to the women was involved, Johnson felt there was one person in the community that may have had something against one of the victims. He also did not rule out that there was more than one assailant. 7.5 years after the murders, in 2008, officials thought they had their suspects. Multiple charges connected to the murder of Dorothy, Cindy, and Brenda were filed against Brian Weber and Lincoln Benavides. Authorities accused Benavides, who police described as the head of a methamphetamine and marijuana distribution ring in western Montana, of ordering the hit on the women, and Brian Weber of carrying it out. Police theorized that the murders had to do with an unpaid drug debt, with police believing Benavides was owed the money by someone tied to one of the victims. Who owed the money and which woman was targeted was never made public by officials, and charges against both men were ultimately dismissed. Prosecutors dropped the charges related to the murders shortly after defense attorneys for both men filed motions alleging prosecutorial and government misconduct. While not admitting to any misconduct by investigators or prosecutors, then U.S. Assistant Attorney Joe Thagard did state that serious errors had occurred. Prosecutors publicly stated the reason for the dropped charges was due to the death of a potential witness and concerns about the credibility of other witnesses. It is important to note that while both men have admitted to their involvement in drug trafficking and distribution, both have always adamantly denied having anything to do with the murders. The killings had a profound effect on the community. Families and friends grieved, and fear set in across the Bitterroot Valley. Etta's Styling Salon, the only other salon in town, began locking its doors between customers. Monica Morlock, owner of the flower shop, began locking the shop's front door when she had to go in the back room. The local school began locking every outside entrance except the front door and provided counselors for the students. Extra security was brought in for the girls' basketball tournament. Sheriff Johnson would state in a 2021 interview, "I don't think I could overstate that. The amount of fear in that community, you could just about touch it when you drove into town. People were scared." 450 friends and family attended the funeral for Dorothy at the Florence Highway Baptist Church, while hundreds more were gathered at the Dealey Leach Chapel in Florence to say their goodbyes to Cindy. The memorial service for Brenda, held at the Lolo Community Church, was also overflowing with hundreds of mourners. The murder of Dorothy, Cindy, and Brenda was featured on America's Most Wanted in December 2001, but did not generate any viable leads. A $10,000 reward has been offered by the Carol Sund Carrington Memorial Reward Foundation. The case was reopened after the charges against Benavides and Weber were dropped, and the Missoula County's Cold Case Unit is now assisting the Ravalli County Sheriff's Office in the ongoing investigation. If you have any information that could help, please call 406-258-3302. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.